Hello and welcome to yet another boss guide. This time we have the Shaper. The Shaper is the second half of Uber Elder boss fight, and like the Elder, it is an individual boss fight first before we get to the Uber fight and fight both of them. How do we access Shaper? So once you start doing T14 maps, from time to time you will have these guardians drop. They are the Shaper guardians: Pit of the Chimera, Hydra, Phoenix, and Minotaur. It is areas influenced by the Shaper. So whenever you get these maps and when you defeat these bosses, I have a separate guide on these, which I will link in the description below for the breakdown of all mechanics and everything that you need to know about Shaper Guardians. You will get their fragments 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once you put these fragments in the map device, the Shaper fight will be opened. Once you enter the Shaper's realm, as you will see, it is a big arena with a map device, and you will have like a cross pattern where you need to reach towards the end of the cross pattern every way, so like 4 ways, and you will there defeat one of the random map bosses. These tend to rotate as well, but if you do like 20, 30, 50 Shapers a day, you will see that they are basically like sort of consistent. So I think they rotate on a daily basis. So you have to defeat 4 map bosses in 4 corners of the map. And once you do that, Shaper will invite you into his own map device, into his portal, by saying, "This is your final warning, leave or perish." Once you enter here, the portal, this is the first phase. You force my hand again, little mouse. So be it, you've chosen to side with chaos and such. So once this fight starts, so this is the entire arena, there are mechanics that are in phase 1. So this is phase 1 and there are intermission phases. So phase 1 begins by him doing his RP. There's a bit of RP there. He has a basic attack, and this is the first mechanic. The first mechanic is basically a beam. Shaper will start channeling the energies and then release them in front for a big beam like so. And that beam deals a lot of damage. Don't stand in it, just avoid it. You can damage Shaper while he's channeling the beam, but for the sake of learning, I haven't done it, so don't worry. So that's one mechanic. The second mechanic, which can appear right before he finalizes the casting of the beam, is this dimension thing that he does, which is a portal towards you as a player in like your proximity, basically above you, where he does a Shaper Slam. Monk. That Shaper Slam is very dangerous, but it is considered an attack, so it can be dodged with evasion or blocked. Next thing that he does are these balls. So Shaper will throw 2 or 3 times, 3 balls each, in front of him towards the player. Those are very easily avoidable, and then some mechanics repeat. There's also one more mechanic, which is the black balls, and these black balls, as you will see later, will have a part to play. I will mention them then. So he repeats the mechanics and such, and there's also another one where he will summon minions, which we will see shortly. But first, let's talk about these black balls. So these black balls basically go towards the player. They're like players are like gravity to them, so they get attracted to the player, and whenever you activate them, you can put them wherever you want in the arena. I suggest putting them on the outskirts. They will make a puddle that deals, I think, cold damage per second, basically, and it's a significant chunk. So if you have some mitigation for it, great. If not, just avoid them. So before they explode, there is a slight timer. They will disappear in different phases. However, in the last phase, when you activate them, they won't disappear because it's the last phase. There are no resets. So Shaper will again continue doing his thing. He will, like, this is an average 5 to 7 minute fight, and this is the last mechanic of the first phase, where he pops behind a portal, opens up a portal, and then Zana tries to destroy to close the portal so we can continue fighting Shaper. Now, as you will notice here, Zana has a red shield around her. However, the only time when she doesn't have the red shield around her, which protects her from incoming damage, is when she channels the energies of the shield to try to close the portal. Zana can be killed here, well, technically killed. She can be brought down to 0 HP from the monsters that are arriving, and then whenever she gets to 0 HP, she goes down south, she recharges her life and shield to full. Once she does, she's back into the map. So if you have, as an example, these puddles, or if Shaper does a beam where she doesn't have the shield, which can happen in the last phase, I'll explain how later on, she will just get that. You need Zana for a specific mechanic that happens later. So this is basically it. You just defend, and that's it. Now, once the Shaper reaches 50% HP, he will say insignificant and portal both Zana and us into a different dimension. This is the first intermission, or phase 1.5. What we do here is we navigate along the path towards the end, where we will fight a mini boss of sort, which is roughly like a map boss, but for Shaper's realm, which has certain mechanics that are very easily dodgeable. It has some balls, it has some AoE on the ground. You will see it now. Sometimes they run away from you, but most of the times they don't. So they have this mechanic, which is like the slam onto the ground, which deals AoE damage. It has the balls that travel along the path, and then once they end, they deal damage from a vortex. Nothing too difficult. They have like 1 or 2 mechanics. The other one throws balls around. You will see it, and that's basically it. You kill it, it pops a portal, and you come back to the fight. As you will see now, Shaper is not at 50% HP. While you are in the intermission phase, Shaper heals. That's basically it. So then he does Behold the Face if you're unmaking. That's the entry point to phase 2. Zana does the RP. Shaper does the RP again. And now mechanics from the first phase repeat. You will have the beam. You will have the balls, you will have the Shaper Slam, and you will have the Black Ball, and you will have the minion summons. This, however, is the new mechanic. This is why you need Zana. Sometimes mechanics will overlap, they will kill Zana, and then you won't have Zana for this. This is the bullet hell mechanic. Shaper teleports between, I think, 9 and 12 times around the area, spawns like 12 to 15 balls, and those balls deal a huge chunk of damage. You can die even with like max block and such, and you want to stay in the Zana's circle until right about the last second when Shaper does an audio cue for a mechanic. So I will play this out so you can hear how it sounds. So bullet hell. So, after the bullet hell that Shaper does, there is always one mechanic that he is going to do. Most likely, it is going to be the beam. As you can see him channeling the beam, as you can hear, she channels the beam. Also, Zana cannot be damaged by black balls while the balls spawn in this phase. However, we as players can, so keep that in mind. That's Zana's shield, not our shield. So he will do one thing, balls are still on the screen, you just need to find an empty area and just dodge away the beam. That's basically it. Everything else in this phase mimics the first phase, other than the addition of the of the bullet hell. Now, once you get Shaper down to, he does repeat it sometimes. I want to mention this one, sorry. So if you have these black balls that do not disappear, the black puddles that do not disappear in the fight, in that phase, and he does the bullet hell mechanic, you can die from those, and then you can come back into the fight, and he will finish his mechanic and do his own stuff and such. So keep that in mind. Also, Zana can die if those are in the middle, because Zana stays in the middle to close the portals. But that's basically it for the phase 2. Now, after Shaper reaches 25% HP, roughly 25-30, he will do another insignificant, and he will pop us to another intermission 2.5, where, well, phase 2.5, where we will navigate throughout another map. These can change, by the way. These maps can change as well. There's always two, but which two there are, they can change. It's irrelevant. They will also be the same thing. You get to the end of this map, you fight the Undaunted mini boss, and you unshaped, pardon, this one, and that's basically it. It has its own mechanics, just some additional balls that he throws, or it throws, and that's basically it. Once you get there, last RP plays, and this is the phase 3. In phase 3, he has another additional mechanic that he does, which we will talk about now, where you can have one Shaper here, and another Shaper can appear, which is called a Shaper clone. It is important to pay attention to the clone, which will appear after this mechanic, if I'm not mistaken. It is very important to pay attention about the clone, because, there we go, so Shaper will just do a small burst, and there's a Shaper clone, which will do the same mechanics as Shaper does, and they can kill Zana. If the Shaper is in the regular phase where he opens the portal, Zana has no shield, and then the shadow beams, it can kill Zana. So that can be a problem. The Shaper's Mirage can't do bullet hell, but it can do all the other mechanics, and it cannot duplicate itself. But that's the additional thing. So you have to pay attention towards two Shapers. One Shaper does bullet hell, the Mirage will disappear. Mirage stays for like 3 attacks or so. And everything else is the same. You have your bullet hell, you have your beam, you have your balls, you have more balls, which are the black balls that pop the stuff. You have your Shaper slam. Everything is there. It's just the addition of the Shaper Mirage. And that's basically it for the fight. Once you defeat him, he will drop a fragment for Uber boss fight. Now, let's talk about Maven. When you add a Maven to the Shaper boss fight, Maven can duplicate Shaper from the first phase. So don't be surprised once you get that. Everything with Maven will happen, and the duplication of the boss can happen from phase 1 up to phase 3, which means in phase 3 you may have 3 Shapers on the map. One regular duplication and one Maven duplication of the boss. So be careful there. Otherwise, that's basically it. Now, once you defeat Shaper, as I said, you get a fragment of knowledge and shape. These are the left fragments, left upper and lower, for the Uber boss fight. The same happens with Elder, with upper and lower. And once you get all 4, so once you kill 2 Shapers and 2 Elders, these are RNG drop, they can be changed with Horty Crafting Station. You will fight Uber Elder fight, which is both Shaper and Elder at the same time. So that is going to be it for this video. Uber Elder fight is going to come up next, nothing to worry about. But if you've liked this video, do give it a like. Thank you so much for watching. Sub if you don't mind to. You can check all this in the description Of course, everything that I mentioned, plus there's my website as well, keviheals.com, that you can access for all the information. There will be a lot of updates for the website, including written guides, but thank you for watching for now, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.